Alrighty, guys, here we go. Welcome back to EF Live. This is kind of an interesting episode because, as I was talking about last week, now I'm coming at you from Vietnam, from Asia. So that's kind of crazy. But before we get into all of that, my guest, Mike Swigunski, I call him Swig. But Swig, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Jake. Happy to be back on EF Live, man. Looking forward to talking a little bit about Reddit, which I think it's an underutilized marketing channel, which a lot of marketers just they haven't really figured it out, or they just haven't played around with it. But we're going to talk about how it can help out everybody's business. So got a lot of cool content for you guys lined up today.
And for those of you who are not aware of this, Swig is with us or with me here at Empire Flippers. And correct me if I'm wrong on the title exactly. You're the marketing and sales coordinator.
Yeah, that's correct, Jake. So, I do everything from marketing automation to paid traffic, setting up all of our conferences, and a bunch of other projects with Empire Flippers.
Yeah, so I was talking with Greg earlier, and Greg is our director of marketing here at Empire Flippers, and he told me that Swig is kind of the Empire Flipper expert when it comes to Reddit. So, really got a good guest, a good topic, and hope you guys enjoy. If you do enjoy, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Facebook, and join our mailing list with Empire Flippers. We have a lot of great content that we want to keep coming at you week by week, and yeah, we hope you enjoy. Swig, first off, this is normally where I would say let's dive into the content, but I just want to address the fact again that I'm coming at you from Vietnam, and you're coming at us from Colombia. So where's everyone in the world coming at us, and how are you all doing?
Yeah, tell us where you're tuning in from, and leave a message. Like Jake mentioned, I'm in Medellin, sporting my retro Empire Flippers T-shirt.
And over here in Vietnam, as you can see, we wear the modern Empire Flipper shirts. Let us know also in chat not only where you're from and which shirt style you like more. Let's show them again.
Yeah, let's get a poll. See which version they prefer. Who's wearing it better.
Who's got better
We'll find out.
hair? Who all that fun stuff. So, um, travels we love, Athens, Greece. I've heard a lot of wonderful things about Greece.
I am going to Greece this summer and couldn't be more excited. So I will be in Athens for a few days in July.
Maybe you'll meet up. Okay, it is time now to get into this content here. And as I said before, it's super, super exciting because it's a topic that I must admit I'm not the most familiar with myself. Well, I'm familiar. I'm not the biggest expert in using Reddit for marketing, and I'm excited to learn. I'm excited to talk about it with Swig here. But it's just a fascinating topic in general because, as Swig was saying briefly before, it's a largely unutilized platform. Swig, can you kind of give us an overview briefly of your experience with Reddit?
So I first started using Reddit, like my friends recommended it, and I was like, what is this platform? Like, it's so terrible looking. The UI is just like horrible. So I went back, like, I went there for like a few days and I was like, this is terrible. I don't like it. Just got off it for a few months, and then everyone just kept talking about it. And I just eventually went back, and it finally stuck. You need like a few weeks of actually using the platform to really like get used to it. And once you do, it's very addicting. So it's a pretty cool space, and there's like millions and millions of people using it. So it's a great underutilized platform to get organic and paid
And
traffic.
how is the experience on Reddit different for a user than an experience on Facebook and Twitter? And how does that set itself apart from the other social media platforms you market on?
So just talking about organic, The problem with Facebook is there's a lot of groups, and it's kind of hard to pinpoint the exact group on Facebook. So Reddit has what I like to refer to as they're subreddits, but they're basically like channels. So like you're into gaming, so I guarantee there's like a channel dedicated to gaming, but also there's probably a subreddit dedicated to speedrunning. So you can join that channel, and amongst amongst the posts there, you'll find like fellow speedrunners, probably people who are even running like Zelda or something. So it's you can really niche down on Reddit, and you can find exactly what you're looking for.
And if that doesn't help you put the pieces together on why this is important, I mean, let's just stress again that there are these groups, these subreddits for any topic that you could imagine. And let's say you are an FBA business seller selling pillows, there's gotta be plenty of subreddits for pillows, and there's gotta be subreddits for striped pillows and pillows with bikes on it. I'm looking at a pillow with a bike on it.
Yeah.
There's all.
Yeah, there's actually a really good FBA subreddit. There's also e-commerce subreddits where people are just really active, they're passionate, and they're like willing to share a lot of value. That's the biggest thing with Reddit is people are very conscious about being self-promotional. So like the stuff you get isn't so spammy or promotional. It's more, how can I add value for other people?
And this is going to bring us into something that I actually love. And when talking about growing your business with Reddit, this is something I love. And when I was putting these slides together, it really made me laugh when Swig gave me this. Here's some tips on what we like to call your Reddit.
Yeah, Reddit is very important, especially if you're new to the platform. You will get eaten alive. Like Redditors are kind of notorious for being like, if you're being too self-promotional or spammy with your post, if you go into Reddit, you have no, you're fresh off, like they can see that you haven't posted before. You don't have any Reddit karma. And if you just go in and like, hey, here's my blog post, check it out, you will get eaten alive. So don't do that.
So there's ways to see how many times a person has commented or posted on Reddit here.
Yeah, you can view people's like history. So like if I went through and was like commenting on other posts, you can see those comments. You can see how much karma I have. So karma is basically like an upvote or a like. So if I post something, then people really like it. It'll get a lot of karma. So people can see that. They can see actually how long you've been on the platform. So I think you get a badge at like 1 year and 2 years. So they can like view a fair amount of information. So that kind of leads me into one of my next points is, again, don't be a troll. Don't do anything like, don't reveal your personal information. Make sure that your profile is like, you're not revealing your actual identity, because it is the internet. You want to be careful with the type of information that others can see, because you might not know who's looking at it.
How do you go about presenting your content, your information, your contact information, all of this stuff without coming across as spammy?
So I'll get into that a little bit more later, but the main overview about Reddit is you should be providing 99% value and then like 1%, promotion. So you really, like, if you're fresh to the platform, just work on providing value. You'll build up your profile, you'll build up your audience, and you'll kind of be testing the waters to see what the Reddit kit is like. So once you kind of have a feel for that, you can kind of start testing the waters with, maybe instead of being 99% adding value, you're at 95 or 90%, where you're increasing your exposure slowly. And this is like the best organic way to do it. So find the subreddits that are interested, like that interest you and that are helpful for your business, and just start like lurking is what we call it on Reddit, where a lurker is just somebody who's kind of sitting there reading the posts, checking out all the information, and not really interacting, but just kind of viewing. And once you've lurked enough, then you can start, commenting, upvoting people, asking questions, and I think that's the best way to kind of get into the platform.
How does lurk, and I get the concept of lurking, but how does that help you come across as not spammy? Can other people tell when you're lurking?
So lurking is just kind of learning. Like it's just a matter like you're there absorbing the information, but you're not like being promotional, or you're not really like lurking is just where you're sitting back, just reading the stuff, not necessarily interacting. So I suggest people take a few weeks of just lurking, like just reading information, absorbing it, and figuring out what Reddit's all
Hmm.
about.
And that's really interesting because you make it sound like it really takes time to establish yourself and learn the way of whatever group you're trying to get in on Reddit. There's no shortcut.
Yeah, I think, if you're brand new to the platform, it's going to take at least 1 to 2 weeks to kind of figure it
Hmm.
out. Um, but once you figure it out, it's going to become really natural. And that kind of brings me on to my next few points of like what to do when you're on Reddit. Like I mentioned, always provide value when you're contributing. Don't be overly promotional. Then using the correct formatting. So Reddit has like it's it's kind of like a code to like let's say you want to use a hyperlink to link to a website or something. There is like a unique set of characters you have to use to put the URL inside, and once you do that, it'll like provide you with a hyperlink. But there's a cool Chrome plugin. If you just search Reddit on the Chrome store, it'll help you with the formatting. It makes it a lot easier.
And then there where it says, remember that you're dealing with humans, what exactly do you mean when you say that?
So when you're on Facebook or LinkedIn or a lot of other social media, you see that you're dealing with like another person. Like they have an avatar, they have a profile picture. You can see your friends, family, like you can see photos of them, like what they're doing in their everyday life. But on Reddit, it's fairly like there's no human avatar to it. So a lot of people, when they get on the platform, they don't realize that they're actually dealing with another human. So just want to keep that in mind that there is another person on the other side. Like, Reddit can be it's a great community to interact with other people, but the way the interface is set up is just not as personalized.
And like everything, Reddit takes time. And we're going to touch on that a little bit more later, but I think a big takeaway here is don't expect results overnight. Don't expect to go and be a new member of a community and expect to, you know, garner all of this interest for what you're commenting. You need to give to the community a little bit for them to be interested in you. Would you say that's a good way of putting it?
Yeah, you definitely need to establish some relationships. As far as like building organic traffic, that's going to be the best way to
Hmm.
do it.
Something that is interesting with Reddit and I've seen used a lot is using Reddit to try to find like-minded people to either just bounce ideas off of or to, potentially even hire when trying to grow your business a little bit. So what are some tips you have about hiring people via Reddit, whether it be for writers or just anything else?
Yeah, so I think a lot of our audience, this is going to be really useful for them because they struggle with finding talent, finding writers, or finding virtual assistants or somebody to kind of help them out with their business. So I think Reddit's a really good platform because there's so many like really active and interested people in every sub niche. So let's say you're just looking for content about, I don't know, lawnmowers or something like really, really kind of like weird. You can go over to Reddit, guarantee there's like a lawnmower subreddit where you can just like ask questions, like see what people are posting there. That can give you content ideas. Maybe you have an e-commerce store where you're selling like some type of men's apparel. You can go over to the men's apparel subreddit, see what trends are popular there, see what other like techniques people are using. Um, there's all sorts of ways you can use these subreddits to hire people and to find people that work in your business. Um, so you can either like post and say, hey, I'm interested in hiring somebody, or you can see who's really active in those subreddits and reach out to them directly. So I'd probably recommend like DMing people directly and seeing what type of responses you get.
Do you, in your experience, have you had good response with people who are strangers to you opening your messages?
Yeah, I think the way Reddit's set up, it's not like it's fairly direct. Like when you do get a message, it's kind of like, all right, it shows up on your account. So people are fairly active there. So like most people who have a Reddit account, they spend a lot of time on there. So they whenever they get a message, they're pretty intrigued. And as long as you word it correctly, I think this response rate would be pretty
Mm-hmm.
high.
You don't see anything where there's no toxicity amongst that. People don't look down upon random DMs.
As long as you're structuring it in the right way. I wouldn't be like, hey, I'm looking at hiring somebody. Like I would just be like, hey, I saw your post about lawnmowers, and at this point that you made, like that lawnmowers, the technology in 2019 is crazy. Like, say something like that from that post, and kind of start the conversation naturally, instead of like, hey, you want to come work for
Mm-hmm.
me, like, and then fill out this form on a random website, or asking directly for like your personal information. So you kind of got to build a relationship there
Mm-hmm.
first.
And do you think it's common, or maybe common's the wrong word, but a good strategy to try to find people by just making a post, starting a new thread and saying, hey, looking for people to help out with this?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, like what you should do first before creating that post is talk to the moderators. So pretty much each subreddit has a moderator. Reach out to them directly. Make sure that it doesn't violate any of their terms. Each subreddit kind of has different terms about what you can and can't do. So anytime you join a new subreddit, it's usually in the sidebar on the right side. They'll have like information. They'll have an FAQ and some information about what you can and can't
Mm-hmm.
do.
And you said that's specific to each subreddit then.
Correct. So reach out to the mods, make sure you get some approval there. And one of the cool things is the mods, they're doing a lot of this stuff for free. So they're probably in that subreddit, they might be some of the most passionate people. Um, they're going to be great for either sending introductions to other people, or even potentially giving you some feedback about your business of what you can do to grow
Mm-hmm.
it.
It's all just fascinating to me because it's so different than other social media marketing.
It really is. Like it's a completely different
Mm-hmm.
approach, and that's why I think not as many people are using it.
If you are looking at this and you have questions about this, we will be doing Q&A at the end, and we'll also answer any related questions to what we're talking about as we go along. We understand, as I just said, this is different than what a lot of you are doing in terms of marketing, and it can be difficult. With that said, Swig, do you recommend hiring someone to handle your Reddit marketing, or is it something that people value authenticity and they want to know, if you are trying to reach out, they want you to reach out?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, like we'll get to talking about paid ads next. Maybe this is a good segue into our next
Okay.
slide. But I would recommend like starting off doing the Reddit's marketing yourself, and then maybe outsourcing the paid ads. Um, because I think the paid ads is like it's a whole nother skill set, and it's something that if you're already doing paid traffic, it's an easy thing for your paid traffic person to just kind of add it in.
Is doing paid ads on Reddit something that most online marketers have in their skill set?
I think it's fairly similar to a lot of other advertising platforms. It's a there's definitely a all the like set creating campaigns and all that stuff is similar, but the approach is a lot different. Like what works on Reddit isn't gonna really work on any other platform,
Mm-hmm.
and what works on other platforms isn't gonna work on Reddit. So like, yeah, your paid traffic person can easily set up campaigns, but they're probably gonna need some guidance on like what type of images to use, what type of copy to use, and you really have to get creative on the wording. So um, it's a definitely something that you should test out. I'd recommend like trying 10 to 15 ads at first. Just start off with like $10 to $15 per ad. Look at around 10 subreddits and build advertisements for those. So, the easiest way to do is just create a spreadsheet, do some research, find out how many users are in each subreddit, see how relevant that subreddit is, and write all this information down, and then kind of cater each ad for that subreddit. So, the topic I keep using is the lawnmower subreddit. So you could, create the copy like directly to those people in the subreddit. Make it unique for them.
And what are some of the benefits to doing paid traffic ads on Reddit? How many people are you potentially going to reach?
So it really varies like on your topic. Like there's Reddit subreddits with millions and millions of people in it. And most of those are like the default subreddits. So like when you sign up for Reddit, you're pretty much subscribed to, like 10 or 15 subreddits, and these are the defaults. Outside of that, if you want to like, cater your actual Reddit experience, you have to go through and like subscribe to those other subreddits. So it really varies. Like there's probably, subreddits all the way, with 5 to 10 people in them, all the way up to like millions.
And if you take a look at the screen here, you'll see this right there, big letters: Redditors don't like ads. So if the people aren't going to like the ads that you're running, what can you do about that?
Yeah, so Redditors definitely like they don't want to be marketed to. They don't want to be like having the traditional clickbait titles. So I think providing some type of value or structuring your, after you spend a few weeks in your subreddits, you'll see like what kind of the topics that are becoming more popular. So let's say I was in the lawnmowers thing. What I would do personally is I would look at the top 10 highest like posts. So I would look at all those posts and try to find like what's in common, and then I would use that that material to create my ad and cater to it, because people already, you can see what's becoming popular naturally, and with paid ads you can get that directly to the top bar in Reddit, so it's going to get a lot of exposure.
Can you outline, I guess without going into too much detail, but really outline, because everyone knows, or most everyone knows, what a Facebook ad looks like. So when going through your average everyday Reddit experience, what do these ads look like?
So if you go to reddit.com and you click on a subreddit, even if you go to just reddit.com, I think if you see in the top bar, there'll be like a kind of like a highlighted area. So it's usually at the very top of Reddit, and it'll say like sponsored. So it's always there. You can actually click through the other ads and see what other people are doing. So just go to reddit.com, click on like the first subreddit you see, and once you're in that subreddit, you'll be able to see some ads at the top bar.
And you mentioned avoiding clickbait. Can you define clickbait for someone who's watching and is unfamiliar with that term?
Yeah, so clickbait is generally where it's a very interesting title, but you're using the title where it's not actually like reality. I'm trying to think of a good example, but like if you're if you're advertising like, hey, here's a free software, free Ahrefs for everyone, but then you have to buy like a $10,000 package to get it. That's like kind of clickbaity because you're getting people to your post, but you're not actually doing what the post
Mm-hmm.
says. Uh, so I think avoid stuff like that. Try to like make it really cater to the subreddit, but also try to provide some value to people and provide like interesting stuff. I've seen like a few giveaways that are profitable. Like, let's say you're in the, again,
The,
like in the gaming niche or something. Like you could be giving away like a Nintendo Switch for having people fill out a survey or for having people opt in. Stuff like that works really well on
mm-hmm.
Reddit because you already know that everyone in the gaming subreddit is interested in gaming. They're passionate. All you need to do is ask for, an email or something, and I think that'd be like a pretty popular
Mm-hmm.
campaign.
And how, just to put this into perspective, how difficult is it to recoup your investment on that Nintendo Switch giveaway? That's $300 that you're giving away there.
Yeah, it really depends what you're doing. If you're able to make it go viral, it could be a very small spend. So you can test it out and see what the feedback's
Mm-hmm.
like. You can make it, so once they sign in, they can do like the viral campaign where they get extra entries for sharing the post and stuff. So there's a lot of ways to do it. But if you're selling like large products, or if you're doing like some customized gaming software or something, it could be a really profitable way to do
Mm-hmm.
it.
And is there, you know, you, it's just so fascinating because you say that Redditors don't like getting advertised to, but then we're talking about advertising. So how can you make your ad different? How can you set your ad apart from all the other ads available to them?
Yeah, I think, nobody really likes being advertised to, like, and Redditors are just more, I think, aware of
Mm-hmm.
it, I guess, or they're a little bit more concerned. So you really need to like keep that in mind that you want to tweak what you're doing on other platforms just a little bit to make it not so in your face.
It's just also fascinating. So moving along here, there's a big topic here that are we need to touch on here. I mentioned earlier that our director of marketing, Greg, told me that Mike Swig here is Empire Flipper's chief Redditor expert. What
Yeah, man.
I was just gonna say. So
It's a good title to
yeah.
have.
So what have you done to really do that? What results have you had?
So I started our AMAs have become very popular on Reddit, and that was kind of my idea, and I was the person to implement it. So every AMA we've done has been extremely popular, but one of them made it to the front page of Reddit. And if you're unfamiliar with the front page, they pretty much coin it as the front page of the internet. So we made it to spot I think 11, and we had 60,000 users on Empire Flippers within a day. That's like a football stadium of people on the website within a day, and the traffic just it continued to keep going. Like we kept getting people for months and months later. Still to this day, we're getting people like I heard about Empire Flippers on Reddit submitting their business or buying businesses from us. Um, so in addition to the users, we've had a lot of ROI
Mm-hmm.
on it.
And what exactly is an AMA?
So an AMA is a way it's called Ask Me Anything. It's a way to start a very organic conversation. So you go into a subreddit. We've done it on the entrepreneur subreddit, but the one that went viral, the one that made it to the front page, was they have a subreddit just for AMAs. It's called IAMA. And in that subreddit, they've had, people from Barack Obama to I think what are the other like Elon Musk. People have done a
Mm-hmm.
lot of popular AMAs in there. So pretty much they come in there, the person who's posting like posts the proof that it's actually them. They post a photo that like this is me, I'm starting this AMA, and pretty much they just like give like a little bit of background of what they're going to be asking questions about or answering questions about. And they like always, the cool thing about AMAs is they're really notorious on letting you kind of promote something at the end. So you'll like write a bunch of text about who you are and what you're doing, and then at the very bottom, that's like when you get like the 2 sentences to kind of promote what you're looking to do. So a lot of actors go on there promoting movies, promoting books, promoting like charitable foundations that they're working with. So it's a really cool way to give some value to the community, but also get some value back for yourself.
How did you do it? How did you get the AMA from Empire Flippers on the front page?
So the first one we did it in a smaller subreddit, and it was way more popular than we expected. Every time we've done these AMAs, we're like, all right, it's gonna flop. Nobody's gonna come out. People are gonna be trolling us, like asking like really terrible questions. But every time we've done it, we're just like blown away by how in-depth the questions are, how like passionate people are, and how much value we get out of it. So the first thing that we did was we did research on which subreddits to do it in. So we started off with the entrepreneur one, and when we decided we were going to do it, I reached out to the moderators, and I recommend that everyone do this before they start an AMA. So reached out to the moderators, told them like, hey, we're looking for dates to do our AMA. In the entrepreneur one, they have a sidebar where they'll like list which date you're going to do it, what your topic's going to be, and they give you some like pre-promotion. So once you're in the sidebar, you're already getting that like organic traffic because everyone's seeing that. They're like, all right, I'm going to tune into your AMA next week. And when that day comes, there's a lot of stuff you have to do correctly. So one of the first things we did was we decided on a date. So you can actually, I put it in the YouTube description. There's a way to see the traffic data for different subreddits. So for entrepreneur, I found out that like Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. was the best time. Like it had the highest traffic. There was no other competition for AMAs that day. So that's why I scheduled it that day, because it was one of the highest traffic dates with nobody else really to compete with. So within 20 minutes of us going live, we were already at the front of that subreddit.
Who was doing the AMA? Who was it of?
So Justin was the person actually it was from Justin. It was an AMA for Justin, but our whole team's involved, like the whole marketing team's involved.
How many, so 60,000 users, and you showed me this, we looked at this data earlier, you and I, 60,000 users went to the Empire Flippers website. How many people were on that subreddit asking questions?
I mean, so this was on the IAMA subreddit, and man, there was like a ton of questions. I think we got like over 1,000 questions or something. It was pretty insane. And I would say of the 1,000 questions we got, like 95% of them were really like in-depth, good questions. The other 5% were just like, they didn't really get the topic. They just, they weren't relevant. And what's cool about Reddit is those bad questions, they just get downvoted, and they like, if something gets downvoted enough, it just disappears.
So that's kind of the community's way of, helping out.
Yeah, so exactly. Like one of the best things we did is we sent an email out to our list, and we promoted it on social media that we were doing AMA. So one of the cool things about Reddit is you want to bring your audience to the subreddit, to the AMA, because they're already familiar with you. They're going to be the ones who have the best questions. They're going to be the ones upvoting you. And it's really important early on to get that traction, because if you don't get those upvotes and those comments early on, then Reddit's algorithm will just be like, all right, this isn't relevant, this isn't popular. And because we sent, an email out to our list, we had some paid ads going, telling people that we're going to do a subreddit or do a AMA in this subreddit. And with all that, like that's really essential to making a popular AMA.
If someone's watching and they're in a different situation, they may not have a big list to market to. They may not have someone like Justin Cook who people have a ton of questions for. How are they going to succeed in Reddit, AMA, getting on the front page, Reddit marketing?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, like even if you don't have like the huge audience like Empire Flippers, you can still make it really
Mm-hmm.
successful. I would, like I mentioned, find the subreddit, find something that's a little bit smaller, and start your first AMA there. And once you've kind of figured out the AMA format, then I would move into like a bigger subreddit.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, you can really get a lot of traction just by having 5 friends. Hey, I'm doing this AMA. Will you come in, ask me a question, upvote the thing, share it with your friends? If you just get 5 of your friends to upvote and ask questions, it'll, like, I guarantee if you're in a smaller subreddit, it'll get some traction. Um, but that's the thing. You really have to concentrate on your topic and what type of AMA you're going to do, because if it's not a popular topic, or if it's not at least providing value, it's no matter how many people you have come there, it's not going to be successful.
And that kind of brings us back to what we were mentioning earlier about start small and then work your way up. Start small, define your topic, hone in on your topic in this subreddit, and then as you gain more traction, gain more following, then you can expand and try to gather a larger audience.
Yeah, we did, I think, 2 AMAs first before we made it to like the big AMA subreddit, and we learned a lot of valuable stuff out
Hmm.
of that. So I highly suggest starting small and kind of working your way.
Do you know if there are any more plans for coming soon Empire Flippers AMAs?
I'm thinking that when we're all in Saigon for our next meetup, we should do
Hmm.
one in September.
Yeah, that could be a lot of fun. So, if you've been watching this series of live streams, you'll know that at the end or towards the end of the show, I like to bring up a listing, talk about it a little bit, and then tie it into what we're talking about here today. So, the listing I've chosen is an Amazon FBA business listing 44451. Swig has a nice blue box around that text right there. It's in the occasions and gifts niche. Uh, as you can see, those are the numbers, making a lot of money in profit. And I actually did a seller interview with this seller. It was either this morning or yesterday, very recently, and very passive business. But the reason why I chose this specific listing is it's an Amazon FBA business. And a lot of times, something that you hear when it comes to online businesses and growing, you know, especially with Amazon, is a lot of times using social media is not as important as trying to grow within Amazon. So my question to you, Swig, is you look at a business like this, it's running very passively right now. There's a lot of seasonality to it, but there's a lot of ways to kind of bring that back up, or level it out, sorry. Uh, so how can this business utilize Reddit marketing?
Yeah, I'm looking at their figures right now, and it looks like they're fairly
Mm-hmm.
seasonal. They have like great earnings throughout the year, but in December they just have a huge spike. So I'm trying to think of how they could kind of diversify
So
their
it's a
products.
business that, just to give you a little bit of backstory, it's a business that focuses on holidays. So in
Okay.
December, there's that spike because they can focus on Christmas. How they could level it out throughout the
Well,
rest of the years. Maybe you hit St. Patrick's Day, for example.
yeah, you got to touch all those holidays, and Americans, we love holidays, so there's probably some underutilized like products that they're using. But as far as like social media goes, I think there's definitely an opportunity for these people to play around with Reddit. Um, whether that's joining the Amazon FBA subreddit and just asking questions about their business, sharing like, hey, I'm doing this and it's been really successful. What else, how can I level out my seasonality? And I think they would probably get some really good
Mm-hmm.
feedback as long as they're providing some value. So give some value, and then in return, they'll get a lot back from that.
And what angle should they be playing this Reddit marketing in? So are they looking to get, I mean, obviously the ultimate goal is to make money, but do they want to put more people toward Amazon? Do they want to try to build an email list? Do they want to, what do they want to do with their Reddit marketing?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I would just, if this person's never used Reddit before, I would have them just join the Amazon FBA like subreddit, join the, whatever products they're in, the holidays subreddit or something, and just kind of like get familiar with that. But if they want to do like ads, maybe they do a giveaway of some of their products to collect email
Mm-hmm.
addresses, or maybe they give some coupons away to their Shopify store. I'm not sure if this business, do they actually have a Shopify store?
I want to say that they do, but it doesn't bring in much traffic.
Yeah, well, that's a great thing. You could build a Shopify store, start collecting emails through that, maybe do a giveaway on your store or have some type of
Mm-hmm.
promotion, and then run some paid ads to it and see how it works. Like, you can start with, $5 to $10 a week or something.
And whether this, particular business does have a storefront set up, or whether someone could, make one for it, it'd be very easy to run those paid ads and try to drive people to that Shopify store using Reddit marketing.
Yeah, I think the thing is you wouldn't want to drive somebody directly to Amazon unless it's like a really, really like interesting, unique product. But there is a subreddit called "Shut Up and Take My Money," which were which is awesome because it's these really cool like products that people just promote there. So you could potentially just, if you had an interesting like holiday item, I think that would be a great place to just directly promote your product. And it's an awesome place. I love seeing like all the new like gadgets and products that come out of
Mm-hmm.
there.
And so we're gonna move along here into our Q&A portion of the show. If you have any questions for us, get them in YouTube, get them in Facebook, and we will try to get to as many as we can. Before we do, though, one thing that I just really want to Romaine, yes, I am back online from Vietnam. Great to see you again. Welcome to the show. Swig, so one thing that I want to bring up to you before we start getting to some viewer questions here is, if, you know, it's obviously a mountain of a topic here, but there's a lot of different social media platforms. So where do you rank Reddit marketing in terms of importance? Like if you had to focus on one, say you only had the resources and time to focus on one, which platform do you focus on? Is it Reddit?
Yeah, I think Reddit's one of those things where I think the organic potential in Reddit is a lot better than any other. I think it's better than Facebook, Twitter, or anything else. As far as paid traffic, I would probably still recommend people starting on Facebook, starting on AdWords, and then once they've kind of have some experience there, kind of tinkering with Reddit ads. It's one of those things where you need to figure out the platform first before you start the ads. So I think there's so much organic potential that's the lowest hanging fruit for people. And once you kind of figure out the organic strategy, start experimenting with paid ads on Reddit.
Mm-hmm. So the Reddit is, as you say, potentially more, you know, organic traffic driving than even Facebook. Yet Facebook is the one that you are hearing about the most when it comes to social media marketing. So why is that? Why is Reddit not more prominent if it's this gold mine of an opportunity?
I think it's just people don't know how to use it correctly, and the people who are trying to do it, they go in, they like, oh, I'm going to experiment with posting my blog or posting my blog post here, and then they do that and they get a lot of like negative feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that after that, they're just like, all right, I don't get it. I'm going to move back to Facebook, where I can promote my Facebook page to, less than like 5% of my actual followers. That's the great thing about Facebook is your actual Facebook page gets like, you do a post and that's shown to like less than a few percent of your actual people who follow your page.
Mm-hmm.
So the way Facebook's changed over the years, like the organic stuff you get isn't as great.
It's so, I mean, that still is, it's just so fascinating to me because you hear all this time that like you need to focus on Facebook and focus on Facebook. And are you saying that just due to recent changes is why Reddit is becoming the best to focus on?
I think it's the best for organic because, like I mentioned before, you can directly go into whatever sub niche you want to talk about, and you can go directly to those people, those passionate people who are already using Reddit. With Facebook, it's a little bit harder to find those groups. They exist, but they're just like, I don't know, it's not as good of an experience in my opinion for organic traffic.
Yeah, that's just fascinating to me. So, Swig, do you have anything else you want to touch on here?
I think I went over a lot of it. I think, there's still so many opportunities, and if somebody's out there listening now, I'd be really interested to see if they're using Reddit or what they think they could use in Reddit, or maybe they have some questions about how they have a unique business problem, and maybe we can answer how they could use Reddit to overcome that.
And really, something that's just interesting to me, or something I'd want to know, would be: does anyone in chat have any experience with Reddit? Let's see. Andrew says, "Hey, I used Reddit to drive traffic to an affiliate site I had years ago. It got tons of traffic, but no conversions. Do you have an idea of how well the Reddit traffic led to conversions for Empire Flippers?" That's an awesome question.
I think we can, as far as attribution, probably over million. We've probably surpassed the $1 million mark on businesses that have been bought or sold from our Reddit campaigns.
Do you know how? You're welcome. Do you know how? How much we've gotten 1 million in sales from the Reddit campaigns? Do you know approximately how much we've put into the Reddit campaigns?
So I'm talking purely organic. Purely
Gotcha.
Free.
Okay. So
that's like a huge ROI from basically spending nothing but our time.
Definitely, that's like an infinite ROI. Has EF experimented at all with paid traffic?
Yeah, we are experimenting with paid traffic. We're doing a lot of campaigns, and we're seeing some fairly good results. But again, we're figuring out the thing where we're trying to be promotional but not overly promotional, and that takes time when you're building ad campaigns.
Well, guys, I think that's, we're going to start wrapping up here. If you do have any more questions, let us know in chat. We'll get to them. A couple things I want to note before we do completely wrap up, though. Again, I'm coming at you guys from a new location in Vietnam. I've been keeping an eye on the stats. It looks like everything's going okay, which is, a good thing. Thumbs up. But I'm excited to come at you each and every week. If there is a topic that you have any interest in hearing about, feel free to reach out to me